And I'd like to thank everyone for joining myself and Ewan today for this webinar as part of Cyber Scotland Week, and our title, Update Required, Rebooting Your Cyber Resilience Strategy. The conversation today is going to be generally about the threats that are out there and the tools that you can use within your organizations to combat them. So, introductions. My name is Gordon Sayers. I'm the CEO at SoConnect. Been in the industry for about 15 to 20 years, actually, having started my own business, what feels like a lifetime ago now, which became part of SoConnect 3 years ago. I acted as effectively the ops director, the chief operating officer, for a couple of years, and moved into the role I'm now in about a year ago to really oversee everything that's going on within SoConnect. And I've seen through that journey how the cybersecurity landscape has changed massively over that time, and look forward to sharing some of that knowledge and experience with everyone today. For you, Ewan.
And I'm Ewan, I'm CTO at SoConnect. I've been in the industry for probably longer than I care to admit now, I think. Probably since 2008, and yeah, my grey hairs kind of show it. So, my main responsibility these days, from starting off as a lowly tech all those years ago, is now to kind of help businesses get their IT strategies in place to kind of be proactive, and mainly focus now is to get customers aligned to the cybersecurity best practices, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Excellent, thank you, Ewan. So on to our first main slide. So cybersecurity has been ever changing over the last few years. COVID and our 2-year period during COVID, where everybody ended up working from home, risk to businesses amplified significantly over that period because they weren't really prepared for the security risks of all of their staff working from home. And now, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've moved into the hybrid working that the majority of businesses seem to be working in. The breach, the average cost of a data breach in UK, sitting at that number, it's a scary number. That would make majority of SMEs go bust. What that means is there's lots of lower numbers, but there's not lots of significantly higher numbers as well. And this slide for me is the one that I think every small business out there should be really paying attention to. 72% of businesses, of medium to large businesses, had a data breach last year. If we just let that one sink in, 72%, that's almost 3/4. A lot of them might not have even known about the breaches, or there might have been very minor ones, but a breach is a breach, and sometimes an initial breach to a business is followed on by something much more significant. Ewan, some thoughts and views on that? The scary numbers?
The 36% one. So that's most of the customers that we work with and our audience today. Probably that's the one that's been increasing over the last couple of years since that horrible event in spring 2020. And it's because it's easier to breach a smaller business because they don't have the budgets and the expertise to deal with these emerging threats. So the medium to larger businesses, whilst there is larger financial gains, it is more difficult for threat actors to get into those businesses. And there's huge rewards there, but we're seeing smaller businesses are definitely on the increase at the end of these types of attacks. So that's another metric, like all the other ones on this slide, that has went up. But that's probably where we really need to focus as our kind of sector as SMEs.
Yeah, and interestingly, the stat there that talks about the budget, the IT budget, the percentage of the IT budget that companies in UK are spending being lower than the rest of the world. We see that within our customer base, and we understand that a lot of businesses know the threats, but they can't get the budget released to spend the money on cybersecurity that they need to better protect that business. And often this is done after the horse has bolted, that old saying, and I don't think it's never truer than in the IT industry and you know, especially in that SME market. And we see that, you and I see that all the time. And unfortunately, often the budgets go up after an event's happened.
Yeah, it's true. And, you know, one of the reasons as well why, you know, the UK is lower than the rest of the world is a lot of the governments and other kind of, well, certainly the G7 and G8 and also the G20, they help their businesses with their cybersecurity in terms of funding and investment. So whilst we do have some good, you know, funding investment in this country, it isn't enough, and that's why there's still a bit of a gap there. So it is something that, you know, the government has made itself aware of, and that might possibly change potentially, maybe with a change in government and by the time the election comes. But, you know, either way, you know, Britain as a whole, it needs to basically make itself more resilient and make sure it's got the budgets put in place, you know, to make sure that all these risks are mitigated going forward, because again, they're only going to grow.
Yeah, and you know, the comment about catastrophic ransomware attack, we know those happen on a more and more frequent basis. Unfortunately, we hear about it in the news. A lot of the larger enterprise organizations, especially those that are anywhere near the public sector or the supply chain, are state-sponsored and state-backed, and the risk, the filter down risk to the mid-market and SME market is significant. And also, because of the way public sector funding and contracts are awarded in the UK, the SME and mid-market are more and more involved in supply chain. And of course, one way to get into that supply chain is through the weakest link. And I think that's why you'd have a parliamentary committee feeling that we were under significant risk of that, because, you know, linked to the underspend in IT budget that they're finding when we compare us to the rest of the world. So all food for thought, and hopefully what we can do as part of today's session is just a little bit of sharing information that we've been able to go and find, and a little bit of education to the listeners and all of you that are watching, to help take that back to your businesses and where change is needed, maybe help drive that forward. So evolving cyber threats. So we've talked about ransomware. It's been around for a while, and it is not going away. Ransomware attacks cause huge damage and disruption to businesses. Our customers have been involved in ransomware attacks over the years. It was more focused on on-premises servers, and very hardly any of our customers have on-premises servers now. But the risk is still there out with that environment. And with a good backup strategy in place, you can reduce the impact, but you're still looking at massive downtime. And we know that ransomware attacks are happening on much larger enterprise organizations, because almost weekly in the news we hear about it. AI is the big talked about piece of technology just now. For 2023, there was a lot of positive talk about AI, and the impact that it's going to have on every sector, every industry sector, and how it can be positive in improving efficiency, allowing people to use the power of the artificial intelligence that's out there. A feeling that in 2024 we might see more of the dark side of AI as it's involved in cyber threats, and it's something Ewan and I talk about a great deal. I know Ewan's done quite a lot of reading into it.
Yeah, I mean, AI is a big thing just now, and it has you know, lots of positive effects out of it. And you know, some of you might even be using it in your own businesses and things just now. We are to an extent, but also there is big risks. So we'll talk about AI in the next slide. But going back to so ransomware is still, it's still the largest threat to small businesses at the moment. I hear about it almost on a kind of a weekly or monthly basis amongst the industry, of kind of like-minded security-focused MSPs like us that, you know, companies are still suffering out there, unfortunately, and it's just because they've still not got the right, you know, methods and techniques in place to prevent those things. Vulnerabilities, I know it mentions IoT there, but vulnerabilities in general are now becoming a large problem to deal with. Usually in the past, vulnerability management was dealt with usually with something like an annual pen test or something like that. You would get done in your company, or maybe biannual or something like that. That's now beginning not to be enough. You almost need to do it now on a kind of a monitored monthly frequency and deal with those risks as they come in. So that's something we're starting to see evolving and change into something else. And you know, there's still still a really good cloud adoption from businesses embracing the cloud because they get that productivity benefit from it, with, you know, high flexible working and, you know, better control of their data and you know, better productivity in general. But again, you inherit different risks from when you were on premise, and again, it's just making sure that everybody's aware of that when they make that change.
And interestingly, just talking about pen testing, so for those that aren't fully aware of it, penetration testing, where an outside party tries to have a look at your network, your entire IT infrastructure, and finds a way to hack into it, basically. Ethical hacking. There are more and more companies out there that are starting to offering the penetration testing as a service. So rather than, as Ewan says, having it done once a year, once every couple of years, it's actually getting done all the time, because the nature of the threats are out there. A penetration test is a time and moment test on your network, and a week later or a month later, you know, the vulnerability that wasn't there could be there. So, you know, it's this continued evolution of how do you make your network as secure as possible. A lot of that's linked to budget, which is again what the focus of this is in terms of the SME market. So back to the AI enhanced attack. Ewan, I'll let you lead on this one.
Yeah, so these are the kind of the main areas that we see that are kind of evolving in the AI, the new AI world. So AI has been around for a long time, but it's basically been reborn in the last kind of 24 months in its current iteration, and it's went through several iterations probably over the past 60 or 80 years. But, you know, specifically, you know, in terms of security, these are the things that we really see that are starting to you know, develop and its way into businesses in terms of the threats. So phishing is no longer, you know, a badly worded email from somebody whose first language isn't English, for example. It's absolutely spot on in terms of its grammar. It can even impersonate people. It can understand, you know, how somebody writes. So if somebody gets access to a mailbox, it can analyze the way that somebody writes their emails. It'll analyze the way it signs off. It may understand, you know, the emotional message coming through in emails, and it will use that to generate a phishing email and send it on to people that person would have a conversation with an email. And it's making it much more difficult to spot. And which is why we need to, you know, make sure that we're trained on that, which we'll come to in a little bit further on. And they've got the tools in place to deal with these kind of threats. Automated social engineering is something else that we're seeing really develop. So AI is kind of scraping social media and other platforms, you know, LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Twitter, and everything. Any digital identity that you have online has been used to gather information about you and make up a false profile, and make that more legitimate to the person, again, whoever the target is going to be for them to compromise. And spear phishing, traditional spear phishing is targeted, and with AI, these attacks can become even more personalized. And again, so AI is making things much more convincing for these targeted special attacks. Usually kind of CEOs, managing directors, CFOs, you know, people with kind of high profile jobs or high ranking positions, because they generally have usually got the authority, you know, to give approvals for things within their business, because that's how, you know, the hierarchies in our business work. And deepfake technology is another scary area where we've not really seen it come into the kind of the business world, but it's definitely been used in the political world. I'm sure some of you have probably seen in the news over the last year or so, and that's a really scary thing for different reasons. But it's still another area that AI is being used in a very damaging way, and not in a positive way, that it really affects us all.
Yeah, and it's interesting, often when we're talking within the business here about the conversations we're having with our customers, cybersecurity feels like all we do is talk about the scary side of things, and it's almost like every conversation we have has the potential to scare our customers with the risks that are out there. But it is unfortunately the brutal reality of where we are is that the awareness of every small business, medium business and enterprise out there needs to be constantly increasing and more aware of the threats that are out there, and the AI enhanced threats are only going to develop. But as AI has developed very quickly, the type of attacks will and the intelligence behind them, I think, is going to increase significantly as well. And in my notes I've titled this the dark power of AI, and unfortunately we have to just assume that there is a very positive way to use new technology. Unfortunately, there's an equally negative way to use new technology. And again, if the only thing that everybody takes away from this conversation today is that awareness of the increased threats, then I think we've done a job in just encouraging and promoting the conversation within businesses. So yeah, what can we do as businesses to reduce risk, improve knowledge and awareness, and just help businesses with navigating their way through cybersecurity whilst trying to get on with what the actual basic the main purpose of the business. We don't want cybersecurity to get in the way, but we do need people to be more aware. So there's some basics. Cyber Essentials is a great badge for companies to have, because it lets their suppliers and their customers and anyone who sees them be aware that they've at least taken a positive view on their cybersecurity. MFA, so multi-factor authentication. It doesn't cost anything. It's there. It doesn't take a huge amount to get it in place, and that in itself reduces the risk of account compromise significantly. Good awareness, and then all the various advanced tools that we'll talk about as we go through the slides. And these are the ones that Ewan will certainly lead on. But we're providing these tools, but so are most other MSPs out there, because everybody's had to become more cybersecurity focused. So, power of awareness training. Human beings are the first line of defense, and we're the largest weakness in cybersecurity, whether we like it or not. We have predictable habits that we follow. We are inquisitive. We see something, a link coming in an email that looks genuine, and it's something that we know might be relevant to us. It's very difficult for people not to go in and click on the link and go on to complete what they think is a genuine message or communication from somebody. And some of the stats say that 74% of successful data breaches involved human error in 2023. So that's 3/4 of all breaches are human error. And that, again, if anybody takes anything away from today, it's a large number, and it's our job, I think, as IT professionals to make everybody aware of this. But anyone who's come on this webinar can take away with them that, okay, we need to make sure our users are better trained. We can cover that, and we will touch on that ourselves with some of the tools that are out there. But yeah, Ewan, some comments from you on how good and also how good human beings are at what we do, but also what the other side of that in terms of being more susceptible to being led the wrong way.
Yes, the question you want to ask yourself as a business is why should I have a user security awareness training program in my business? Well, as the stats back up, 74% of security breaches happen as a result of either employee error or negligence. And it's quite as simple as that. And so security awareness training educates your staff on the potential risks that they have with, using their systems and using the data, and how to avoid those risks. And that will ultimately reduce the likelihood of a breach happening. And what you then want to start with is implementing that program, doing a gap analysis, understanding where the weaknesses are amongst the staff, and then implement a culture of security going forward. Because regular training will foster a culture of security, where the employees are mindful of potential threats and take responsibility for their action, and really, strengthen the overall resilience of the business if they all kind of work together doing that. So, because the company's security when it comes to the staff is only as strong as their weakest person. So that's the kind of the main kind of takeaway from that, I would say.
Excellent, thank you. So, leading neatly on, how can you transform staff into your first line of defence? And there's a lot you can do for not a huge amount of money, and a lot of it is just awareness training. Make your users more aware of the threats through training. Now, you can't just rely on people going, all right, okay, it's a dangerous place out there, and carry on. We train our staff to use the new systems that we put in place. We train them to use Office 365. We train them to use SharePoint if you do a migration. Any new tool that you're bringing in, especially the more expensive ones, you've got to train your staff on how to use a platform. So in terms of the awareness training, and given the potential damage that can be caused to the business, looking back at the numbers there, the average cost 4.1 million. By training your staff and making them more aware, you are reducing that risk. And that training is as important as the training you give them in using a new piece of ERP software or your SharePoint training, because it reduces risk. We are all about, we can't remove risk, but we can reduce it. And having a good awareness training program really it cannot be underestimated, the impact that has on the staff within a business and reducing the risk to that business.
So there's 4 key areas that are in the tool that we use. There's various tools out there. The one that we use has these kind of 4 areas in it that are that we believe are the best way to implement a user security program within your business. So the first thing, like I mentioned earlier, is you do a gap analysis. So that calculates what a user's security posture is per person. And then they were basically then enrolled in security programs based on how they scored. So if they are weak, an example for password management, or they're weak in phishing or something like that, it will enroll them in the courses to basically lift up their overall security awareness. And then us as your IT partner, and yourself as business owners, as managers, you'll get visibility of that, and you can see overall the trend of the overall resilience of the business increasing over time. And it just, you do that on a kind of monthly basis, or whatever kind of cadence that you and your staff are happy with, and you'll see that benefit in the long run, and hopefully that will result in a longer term without any breaches. Also, doing phishing tests frequently is also really important. So things like HMRC emails or common emails that any business has, or your business has. You can also create tailored emails. If it's like a CRM system that you use, you can create emails and falsify an email and send it out to the staff and test how resilient they are, into spotting some of the common traits that you need to look for when receiving an email. And if a user engages with that email, it will then let us all know, and then it'll then enroll them in that training program they need to go through to make sure that doesn't happen again, and really teaches them, educates them. The third thing is UB. We have UBreach, which is dark web monitoring. So it uses integrations and APIs with some kind of clever technical tools to check what's out on the dark web in a kind of safe way. So it uses the email addresses that exist within the business, and it constantly checks the dark web to see what those email addresses and other data that relates to them exist out in the dark web. Once things are out in the dark web, there's not really much you can do about that, but what then you can do is then take the steps to then potentially mitigate any threats, such as obviously changing passwords and things like that, updating your MFA, all these sorts of things. And again, it just makes things visible to you as a business to let you know where threats might be lurking that may surface possibly further down the line. And the last thing is policy. So again, making staff aware of what the rules are with your security is really, really important. So as important it is to teach somebody how to use, 365 and SharePoint and things like that, it's equally important to let them know the security boundaries and the guidelines around how it's used, password management, how to share files, things like that, and all that's really governed by really, really good, clear, security policies for the staff.
And just two key things for me from this, from a management point of view, reporting. So if you have user security awareness training within your organization, whatever platform it's from, being able to report on that, see who is taking part in the training, see how people are scoring, allows you to then focusing on the users that need the most assistance in improving their knowledge and reducing the risk to the business. And without that, it's often these users that end up being compromised. And from a strategic point of view, with the business taking the right approach to the user security training, it can form part of be part of the overall strategy towards cybersecurity to lead you towards being more cyber resilient, and neatly then looking at the cyber essentials piece, where by putting a number of factors in place, you're reducing that risk overall. And Ewan has led SoConnect in our journey for cyber essentials in terms of being Cyber Essentials Plus certified ourselves, but how we talk about that with our customers and these 5 key areas. And again, I'm going to let Ewan talk about this because he's passionate about it and he's got much more knowledge than I do.
Yeah, so this Cyber Essentials is still the core foundation within the UK to get yourself aligned to a good cybersecurity posture. It's the kind of the basic foundation that any business really needs to have these days, because it establishes a good basic cyber hygiene. And that's done by making sure that you've got good access controls for your staff. So making sure, excuse me, that nobody has anything more than they need access to than they need to for their job role, and that those permissions and access is recorded. Having good secure configuration on your devices, so basically not taking a printer or a network switch out of the box and plug it into the network, and not making sure it's got the proper precautions, the security precautions to keep it safe. So that needs to be audited and implemented. Malware protection, which we'll talk about a little bit about in a couple of slides, so making sure that you've got a solution in place to protect all the endpoints, so all the laptops and desktops and servers in your environment. So making sure that there's some sort of software on that can deal with malware if it does end up on a device. Patch management, so making sure you've got very good patch management. This is probably the most common area that we see when we take somebody through Cyber Essentials, that there is definitely a large misalignment with that. So patches are generally released from Microsoft in a kind of 2-week cadence every 2 weeks. And sometimes they'll send out things even earlier than that if there's a high critical vulnerability that's been discovered, such as the Outlook one a couple of weeks ago. And so making sure that you've got a good process in place to make sure that you've got a patch management system that'll deliver patches to all the machines within a 2-week window, and you've got a good compliance level to that. And the last thing is the boundary firewall. So the device that connects your business to the world has got to be secure, because it is the gateway to obviously all the nice and fluffy things on the internet, but it's also the thing that's connected to all the bad things on the internet as well. And it's still an area that can be attacked and compromised and a way into the business. So if you have all 5 of these things in place, you have very, very good resilience. It'll make you more resilient to all the common threats that are out there. It will build trust with your customers, and making sure it'll demonstrate that you're taking security precautions seriously, because not only are you holding data for your business, but most of you, if not all of you, have probably got customer data in your environment, whether it's in emails or your file systems, etc. And that really demonstrates that. Compliance and growth, and that will start to probably take off in the next couple of years. We'll start to see more regulations in certain industries kind of really start to enforce this as the Cyber Essentials certification. You can already see it within NHS and things like that, public sector mainly just now, but private industries are definitely going to start enforcing that. And the solution that we use, if you go through the Cyber Essentials Plus certification, you receive an automatic cybersecurity insurance policy that will cover you up to £100,000, which is great, because not many people, again, it's a thing that not a lot of people consider just now is cybersecurity insurance. So with our method that we use, you get it as part of that process.
Thanks, Ewan. And yeah, so the title of the slide obviously is rebooting your cyber resilience strategy, and this is an absolute key part of that strategy. Understanding the 5 key principles of it is an excellent start. Actually getting Cyber Essentials certified or Cyber Essentials Plus certified, it just, as Ewan says, it builds trust with your customers, your suppliers, and shows that you're taking the right approach to cyber. So multi-factor authentication, we touched on it earlier. It's a free or low cost way. It's generally free of significantly improving your cybersecurity and protecting your user accounts. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this, but what we see as a business is, and being a Microsoft solutions partner, Microsoft accounts in particular, all business accounts will be the same, Google as well, are attacked by bots, by AI-driven bots, every minute of every day, 365 days a year. And what these bots do is they will guess a password on an account that isn't protected properly. And if they guess that password, and they'll throw potentially millions of passwords at key accounts, especially as you mentioned earlier, the managing directors and your chief financial officers and so on. And if they get the right password, they're in without MFA. So multi-factor authentication reduces that significantly, and it is one of the easiest ways for an account to be compromised. So again, in the takeaways, if anyone's taking notes, MFA, do we have MFA enabled in our organization for all our user accounts? If we don't, get it done, because it's an easy win, and that's what we want. We like the easy wins to reduce risk. Anything to add to that? You're only just happy for me to...
Yeah, we can move on. Yeah, you've covered everything there. Yeah,
perfect. So we've talked about a lot of the basic tools that you can have in place. There's a whole lot of more advanced tools out there that there's a cost involved with it, but it does, again, it's all about significantly reducing the risk. And a lot of the advanced tools are more applicable to certain industries, in particular financial industry and public sector, as defence, as Ewan's mentioned. So we're going to talk just a little bit about some of these more advanced tools.
So Zero Trust, you may or may not have heard of this. It's now it's been around for a little while. It's part of the guidelines since last year. Just for awareness, there's no compliance policies or requirements for it yet. It will be at some point. We've yet to hear what the new Cyber Essentials guidelines are for this year. They've not been released yet, unfortunately. But Zero Trust is now mentioned as part of Cyber Essentials, so it's basically just raising awareness about what it is. So Zero Trust is an IT security model that requires strict identity verification for every personal device in a network, regardless of whether it's inside the office or if it's outside the office. That's really the bottom line. So the 3 core principles, so never trust, always verify. So making sure that you've got a good posture for making sure that devices are trusted. Least privileged access, never give your staff more privileges or permissions in an IT system as necessary. And a good maturity sign of cybersecurity is to assume that a breach is inevitable. That's the main highlights for that.
Perfect. Thank you, Ewan. Yeah, and I think, again, just for me, zero trust. I mean, just don't trust anything anywhere, and unless it's been secured or aligns to those principles. And whilst that may seem extreme to some people, it gets the mindset in the right place, and you can work back from that. Traditional antivirus or endpoint detection and response. So the old antivirus programs that have been around for decades now, they do a job, but they're not as effective as they used to be. And what has come in place now is basically much more intelligent software to protect your endpoints, your laptops and your desktops, that will be a little bit more proactive in how it deals with threats, and is, yes, as I say, it's using intelligence and arguably a little bit of AI to improve the security. And I'll let you talk a bit more about it.
Yeah, so traditionally AV is still a current solution, but we're already starting to see that it's starting to fail where there's new threats that it's not capable of dealing with, essentially. So traditional antivirus relies on signatures, so essentially like a database that it checks against to make sure that, you know, whatever the file type is that comes into an environment exists on a database, and it is a threat, and it will then quarantine it, and it'll take the actions to then basically isolate it. But if it can't detect a new threat, so some new threats pop up every single day that have signatures and methods that indicate that it is a threat, it won't be able to deal with it. And that's where EDR takes control, because it doesn't just look at the file itself, it looks at basically what it's doing and how it's interacting with the rest of the machine. And if it detects or suspects that it's malicious, it'll then take the automated steps to then quarantine and isolate that machine before it either causes further damage on that device or if it spreads into the network. EDR will also do proactive threat hunting. So it won't just wait for files to land on the device and then check and scan them. It will constantly go out and check all different areas within the devices to make sure that everything is safe, and do that same kind of sentinel response within the device. And EDR takes the first step in dealing with a virus that, again, traditional AV can't do, and then allows the specialist then to get onto that device and then take the necessary steps to quickly recover it and make it safe again for use.
Thank you, Ewan. Moving straight on to the next step up from that. So Siemens SOC, I'll let you explain what those are, Ewan.
Yeah, so these are, again, advanced tools and services. So security information and event management is a tool, and the SOC is a service. So security information and event management is effectively a log collector that connects all your systems together and generates real-time alerting to threats to allow a fast response. So basically it connects, as an example, to Office 365, it'll connect to your firewall, it'll connect to all your laptops, desktops, your servers, your backup solution, even your CRM. And all these systems and devices and applications all generate logs every second of pretty much every day. And what this solution does is basically triage all these alerts, and it will then look for anything that is potentially a threat or a suspicious threat. And that's where you really need to have a SOC in place for that, to kind of back that up. So the SOC is a team of security experts, human beings, 24/7, that will then react to these alerts as they come through. So this is the kind of the ultimate 360 protection to have in place for your business, particularly if you're worried that, because the threat actors are, they're 24/7. They don't work your 8 or 9 till 5 or something like that. They work all around the clock. So making sure you've got a fast response to dealing with these threats, might be 2 o'clock in the morning, might be early evening, late evening, morning, it might be any time of the day that these threats can happen. And the faster that you can react to these threats, the better the outcome of your business in the short and the long term. Because if somebody's into an environment for a couple of hours, it's estimated at the moment, then it can do real significant damage. So having that fast response is really what this solution and this service does for your business.
Thanks, Ewan. And to kind of make this a bit real world. So this is a case study on cyber resilience. So we're using financial sector because I think everyone understands the significant risk there. This is a made-up case study. However, it could be any number of breaches that happen every week of every month of every year for the last few years. So mid-sized company in financial sector using traditional antivirus. They've had 3 breaches in 2 years, and believe it or not, we do see companies that have multiple breaches before they really buy into their change their cyber resilience stance and their approach to things, because it's about money and it's about, well, we've had one, we'll be okay now. So financial losses, reputational damage, and it happens. Realizing limitations of existing antivirus software, they implement stronger resilience measures. So we talk about EDR being a more intelligent and active bit of software that doesn't just react to threats as they come in. It looks for changes to other devices and behavior in the network, using a huge amount of intelligence in the background to say, hang on a minute, that machine's behaving differently than it has before. That's not right. And then it has the ability to take a machine off the network before it causes danger. Awareness training. One of the most key aspects for me is making users more aware. And then we've got the SIEM solution where, that's the ultimate step of tracking everything every minute of every day, so that if an account gets breached at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, Saturday night, that SOC team informs the on-call IT service team who's looking after the company. They are then able to respond and deal with that, change the account, lock it down, and start mitigation procedures straight away, rather than wait until the Monday morning when all the damage is done. Right. Ewan, anything to pick up on that?
Yeah, just to really kind of emphasise that this was a layered approach to implementing the mitigation. So it wasn't just looking at EDR as just a kind of a solution to take care of the problem going forward. It's a way to add the different layers for basically a threat actor to get through potentially. And because not every security solution on its own is 100% resilient. That's not going to be the case. But if you use them in a layered approach, it really makes it more resilient. Making staff aware of all of this, again, making them aware what these tools do and how they need to interact with their system is definitely key.
Yeah, and we talk about the layered approach quite a lot. And if you just look upon the layers as your user security awareness training, your endpoint detection and response, having cyber essentials, these are all different layers that you can put in place. Having a DNS scanning tool on your network that will protect the users that are working at home as well as the users in the office. Each layer provides a certain amount of security and protection to the business. The more layers you have, the more you're reducing the risk. You can never remove it altogether, but you can certainly reduce that risk. So some useful links to share with everyone. I'll let Ewan focus on the first one, which is, again, it's a free tool, and we would encourage everyone to take this one away and just try it on their own business.
So the National Cybersecurity Centre, which is the government's arm within GCHQ, to help build that cyber resilience within the UK. I've got some fantastic material on the website. They are the ones who work in tandem with IASME, who is the governance behind Cyber Essentials, and they've got some really fantastic information in there. So I definitely recommend going and checking out. They've got some great advice just on simple things like password management and MFA and a lot of things we talked about today, but they've also got some really good interactive stuff, such as Exercise in a Box. So I definitely recommend everybody to try that. So Exercise in a Box is a safe place on the internet for you to basically simulate some of the common threats and basically how your business then deals with them. So things like ransom attack delivered by phishing email, somebody stealing a mobile phone that's got company information on it, third-party software compromise. Also, there's about kind of 12 different exercises in there. There's also some micro exercises as well on using passwords and responding to ransomware and things like that. And it will then give you, based on how you respond to that and how you interact with it, it'll then kind of give you a score and basically kind of give you a kind of gap analysis to things where you might think you have things in place, but actually you don't, because you've done that kind of that test scenario in a kind of safe environment. So I'd highly recommend that everybody takes that away and go through some of those exercises and see how you do. Oh, you're on mute, Gordon.
Thank you. It's bound to happen at some point. If there's free tools out there that help better inform your business as to the threats that are out there, and this one in particular allowing you to simulate an attack, which is one of the scariest things that can happen to any business. Highly recommend that you give that a go. And if you'd like some support from us or your own MSP, then get that done and just at least get a feeling for what it might be like to have something happen to your business and how you're going to respond, because then you'll be able to prepare yourself better if it does actually happen. SoConnect Business Security Scorecard. So this is just a little 12 question scorecard we've put together that you can go through yourself, and it'll just give you a bit of a feeling for where you are with the security in your business. Only takes 5 minutes or so. We'd recommend that you do that. You don't have to engage with us. It's just an opportunity to answer questions that just probe a little bit about where you are in terms of your cybersecurity posture and what the company has in place. And for some of the questions, if you don't know, then again, it lets you go away and just check that out. And lastly, we publish a newsletter every week. There are over 500 businesses that are part of this. Claire, who has been silent for this, but she puts a huge amount of work into our blogs, our newsletters, and did a lot of work to put the presentation together today. So thank you, Claire. But she publishes this newsletter in conjunction with you and I on a weekly basis, and we just try to keep people aware of what's going on in the industry. And again, we talk about a lot of the things we've talked about today, but you can go into a little bit more detail. So there's a link there for people for anyone who's interested to go and have a look and read through some of the blogs that are there and subscribe to the blogs going forward, just again, to keep yourselves better informed. Q&A. So we've got a few minutes for a Q&A. If anyone's got any questions, then please just fire away. I've got a Q&A piece that I've just opened up. If there are questions that you're not sure how to formulate, then you can obviously follow up with that afterwards. But if there are any questions, any things we've talked about, be more than happy to hear them just now. I've got a hand up somewhere.
There should be a Q&A box on your Teams, I think, for you to place your questions. I think it should be there for everybody, or you can place them in the chat.
Not sure we've got volume turned on, Mike, I'm afraid. So if you've got a question, then please, just.
Michael, I've allowed your mic. If you'd like to take yourself off mute, you'll be able to ask your question.
If that's a technical issue that's stopping us being able to get any questions, then apologies, Michael. We can always follow up out with the meeting. Given that time's marching on and not want to hold anyone back,
Sorry, Gordon, we've got a question from Karen in the Q&A. If you'd like to answer that one.
Yeah, so she's asking, is Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus likely to become mandatory at any point? Like it is just now, like I said, for public sector and things like that, for health and things like that, you have to have it. Like I said, it will probably feed into other areas and other industries that have some sort of regulation behind them. Like we're suspecting the FCA is probably going to make it mandatory at some point, potentially this year, for anybody in the financial services sector. But there isn't anything on the horizon now that kind of makes it mandatory overall at the moment. But considering the process that it goes through and the cost that it is, I would personally like to see it implemented and made mandatory, but there's got to be good support there from government to do that, because that's not something we can just expect every business to go through. I think if we can do that with some funding, like we did have funding for Cyber Essentials just before April 2020, there was a great sign up period for a couple of years, but unfortunately that funding did eventually dry up. So yeah, it's then made it more difficult for businesses since that point to get Cyber Essentials certified. But yeah, short answer, there isn't anything on the horizon in terms of anything being mandatory, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in the next few years.
Hi Gordon, sorry, it's Michael here. A slight issue with my headset there.
No problem.
So my question is about, we try to ensure our employees are as productive as possible. So that means they may have different platforms or different devices they use. So not everything is 100% Windows, shall we say. We may have Linux, we may have Apple Macs, we have Android. What's your thoughts on how we cope and deal with these multiple platforms that our colleagues and employees use? In the context of that, what you've been speaking about.
That's a good question. For mobile phones and iPads of various different operating systems, there's mobile device management. There's a lot of the instruction needs to come internally from companies about how people use their data, how they use their devices. But for the actual use of applications like the Microsoft Office suite, email in particular, for mobile devices, we can put in mobile application management as well to really put compliance in place for how people use these applications and protect the data that's on them. I don't know, Ewan, if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is covered under Cyber Essentials and mainly in Cyber Essentials Plus there for the things you just mentioned. So I think going through that process, the very first thing they'll give you once the audit is complete is then the visibility of that, and then the outcome of that, and then that might take some time, it might take a couple of months to do potentially, is then implement the remediation of the compliance within your main corporate environment, what all your devices and users are connected to, and then obviously underpinned by policies which will come out of the back of that for your cybersecurity strategy as a company, and then obviously that then needs to be shared with all the staff. So there is an element of change there and education that the staff would then need to be made aware of once you go through that process. That's also included in things like ISO 27001 and some of the other frameworks, but it is included in the Cyber Essentials one because regardless of what type of device it is, Windows, Mac or Linux, all those devices still have to come under all those criteria and the compliance that you go through in that process.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Gordon.
No problem. Thanks, Michael. A couple other questions. Ewan, one from Kevin there on anticipation gut feelings on changes to the Cyber Essentials assessment for this year. You did touch on it a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, there's not really, usually we get wind of that, but we've not, I was just at a kind of a security peer group a week or two ago, and we were just talking about this because usually those guidelines have actually usually been released. It's usually the end of January and usually come into enforcement for the kind of the financial year. But unfortunately they haven't been shared yet. So we're not sure that there was not many changes that were made to the compliance guidelines last year. In fact, there was not many things added. There was a few things removed, such as home routers and things like that were no longer under the compliance criteria. because it was such a mammoth task to do, that because of the hybrid working we now do, the focus has now been shifted. Instead of from home routers and things like that, is making sure that the devices that connect to these home routers have got the proper compliance in place. So I can't really comment exactly yet, because like I said, we've not really got wind of anything yet. But once we do, then we'll definitely be sharing that online and in our blog and stuff, just so everybody's aware what those new criteria are.
Thanks for that, Ewan. We're starting to get close to the 12 o'clock mark. Ashish has asked about, for small businesses, what is the investment required? I mean, as a start, we would recommend looking at trying to get Cyber Essentials certified. You need to have certain measures and controls in place, as mentioned in the slides, and we'd be happy to advise you on that. What we've done is we've put together a pack of products that we know will go a huge amount towards making you compliant for Cyber Essentials, and they include a password manager, a DNS filtering service that acts as a software firewall for your remote workers. It's got our endpoint detection and response in it, and some other tools as well that are all there to not just secure devices in the network. It includes the user security awareness training as well. But we know that if you have all of these in place and they're all up to date, along with some policy changes, that's what you need to have yourselves Cyber Essentials compliant. And then the next stage on from that is Cyber Essentials Plus, which just has some additional rules to it, but they really significantly reduce that risk. And for small businesses, we understand you've got to look at the investment required, and what that is going to bring you as a business. Unfortunately, the risk is the breach and the loss of revenue, the loss of data, and that reputational damage. And our recommendation is it's something every company needs to look at as part of the budgeting to increase their spend so they can reduce the risk. So hopefully that answers your question, and there's going to be, you can obviously get in touch with us afterwards. If we could just quickly go through the summary and key takeaways here. Cybersecurity investment, as I've just said, it's crucial. Everybody, unfortunately, needs to just look at what they're spending and take a view on whether that spend is enough. I'm not automatically going to say everyone has to spend more, because some companies may have already got ahead of the curve a little bit, but our experience is that a lot of companies are behind, and they do need to increase their spend to reduce that risk. And then it's all about the acceptable risk for each business. Next piece, Ewan.
Yeah, advanced threats require advanced defences. So, there's more and more solutions that we require now in services and training to deal with the threat landscape, because it's constantly changing all the time. Ransomware is still becoming even more persistent than it was, still a huge threat. And so we just need to make sure that we've got the proper tools and the services and the policies and the training. All that needs to be in place to deal with the future, really, because that's what we really need to try and do, is need to try and deal with them now, but we also need to try and get ahead of all these new threats that are coming into the small business market.
And of course, the human element, we've talked about it a lot today, is absolutely key to your cybersecurity posture. Improving the knowledge of your employees and their awareness of the threats that are out there is one of the key parts of protecting the business against the threats that exist, and will continue to change, develop, and you'll get new evolving threats all the time. So well-trained and informed workforce is going to present significant benefits to any business that takes that approach. Last piece there, in the face of the evolving threats, be informed, prepared, and proactive. And how you do that is going to be individual to every business. And some businesses are going to have more time and money to spend on that, but at least taking that approach is just going to improve your overall posture. So to finish off, you can get a free cyber health check. Claire will follow up with everybody that's registered for the webinar today. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope everyone is able to take away something from this to take back to their businesses and make you just that little bit more secure. First 20, any business over 20 employees will get a free cybersecurity audit. And yeah, if there are any follow-up questions, please get in touch. As I say, Claire will follow up with an email. Hope everybody enjoyed. Really appreciate everyone in joining us for this, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.